Welcome. I'm Mike Ciccarone from the Bridgeband Group. Thank you for watching this explainer video on program strategy mapping. The content that follows is an excerpt from a webinar that took place in July 2021. In this video, we'll cover an overview of what program strategy mapping is and how it can help nonprofit organizations make strategic decisions about how to have greater impact and how to be more financially sustainable. We'll also hear from two leaders, Karina Ayalo Bermejo and Ian Sharping from Instituto del Progreso Latino, a Chicago-based nonprofit that used these approaches to strengthen their programs. To learn more, including about the analysis behind program strategy mapping, check out our article, How Nonprofits Can Map Their Programs to Their Strategy, as well as the accompanying process guide and Excel tool. Thanks for watching. There's these perennial challenges in our sector, the challenge of having impact with our programs and really, focusing on equitable outcomes for those most marginalized in our communities for much of your work. On top of that, the financial sustainability of your programs is always top of mind, and there's this vast, almost unmet need for most of the programs and services you all offer. And you've got the challenge of, doing that work and building an organization that'll last into the future to keep doing it. That's been the story of the sector for a long time. And in the last 18 months, your work has become even more important, with COVID-19 exacerbating inequalities and your work filling even more vital resource gaps and new attention and urgency on the issues you've been working on, all this time. Yet still these resource limitations force us to prioritize. You can't do everything at once, and not everything you can do is going to have the same impact on your community and with the communities that you work with and care about. And so it gets at this question at the bottom of the page: how, as a nonprofit, can you have the most impact with the limited available resources that you have? And that's where this idea of program strategy mapping can help. So a program strategy map is a tool to help visualize a nonprofit's portfolio of programs against its so-called double bottom line. The map is composed of 2 axes and 4 quadrants. This horizontal x-axis is about a program's alignment with your goals for impact. If you use the concepts of intended impact and theory of change, that falls in here, but you could be however you think about your goals for impact. What are the outcomes for the people you work with that you hope your work achieves? The y-axis is about financial sustainability and how your organization contributes, how that program contributes to your organization's financial bottom line. And then the 4 quadrants that result from this prompt different questions about the programs that fall into them. In the top right, there's programs that are highly aligned with your goals for impact, and they generate positive financial returns. This is work where you want to ask, how can we grow and do more of it? These programs, they're rare in our sector, but when you have them, they really are the clear winners. On the bottom right are the programs that are highly aligned with your goals for impact, but they require some subsidization from your unrestricted funds in order to cover their costs. An example here could be a really effective program that's funded by a government contract, which has a low overhead rate, and it doesn't truly cover the costs to deliver that program. So to continue doing it, you need to raise unrestricted funding to cover that gap. These are programs you do because they're having an impact and they're worth that extra work and investment. And here we call them your mission leaders. On the top left, you've got revenue contributors. These are programs that are generating a financial surplus, but they're less aligned with your goals for impact. These programs, you might ask, how can we improve the impact of them? And if we can improve them, can you manage them effectively so they generate additional income that could then subsidize some of that work on the bottom right? That's really core to your mission. And then on the bottom left, there's programs that are not aligned with your goals for impact, and they require some financial subsidy. These are potential distractions in your program mix. And we use that word potential very intentionally. There could be valid reasons to keep programs like this. Maybe they're new and in a pilot stage, and you expect them to improve on one of these dimensions. Maybe there's intangible benefits to them. They help your organization gain access to key stakeholders or get a seat at the table in your community that you wouldn't otherwise have. Or maybe it's a program where you already know there's clear ways you could improve them, sort of move them up and to the right on this map, strengthen their outcomes, strengthen their financial positioning. These are also the programs where sometimes as a leadership team, you need to think about whether you should exit them. either ceasing to deliver the program entirely or handing it off to a partner in the community for whom it's a better strategic fit. And so let me show you briefly, how we go about doing some of the analysis that leads to a program strategy map, and then we'll look at Instituto's work on this. So in order to analyze your programs with this framework, you need to develop a set of criteria and then rate each program, essentially defining what does good look like. For alignment with goals for impact, we typically use the 3 criteria you see here. There's the extent to which the program is achieving participant outcomes, the extent to which it's serving your population of focus, and then whether it's faithfully deploying the key approaches that lead to impact. For organizations with an intended impact and theory of change, these, if you use that framework, these criteria really speak to that. What do we want to achieve, with whom, and how do we get there? On financial sustainability, we tend to use 2 criteria: net financial contribution and funding reliability. And for each criterion, we then create a detailed rating scale. So I'll just give you an example for 2 of these, what a high, medium, and low might look like. If you take first on program outcomes, you might look program by program and create a couple of cutoffs for the % of participants who are meeting the program outcomes goals. So in this example, you might score a program as low if less than half of the folks in the program were meeting those goals, medium if it was 50 to 75% of participants, and high if it was greater than 75. You'd have a similar rating scale for your other criterions. If you take financial contribution, you might get at that by taking the true costs of a program and subtracting those from the revenues the program brings in. And so the scale could look like this. A 1 on this rating scale is a program that has a net loss. You have to subsidize it with funding from other programs. A 2 might be a program that truly breaks even. The revenues totally cover the costs. And a 3 might be that rare program that actually brings in more revenue than it costs to run the program.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. I've had the privilege of being the president and CEO of Instituto for nearly 4 years, and it's been quite the journey. We're really proud of where we've come to be and really excited and proud of our roots as well. Instituto has been around for about 46 years, and we're an anchor community here in Pilsen and Chicago. If you're familiar with the area, our geography includes Pilsen, Little Village, Back of the Arch, Gage Park, etc. And we believe that every immigrant, especially through the work that Instituto does and our partner organization, that every single immigrant can reach their full potential. And we do that through education, training, and employment. You're going to see a little bit more about our programming. We're really proud of the 2 charter schools that we run. We have a Health Science Academy, a Justice and Leadership Academy, a college, a new college that we launched about 2 years ago, a College of Nursing. It really is to complete the pipeline that we've had such national recognition and excellence and success in healthcare. So we have 3 main pathways: healthcare, manufacturing, and retail. So part of the work that we do is ensuring that every member of the family reaches their potential. So our intended impact is to break the cycle of poverty within our communities and the population that we serve, our Latino immigrants and all immigrants and refugees in general.
So you all saw that simplified version of this 2x2 framework, and now here's a version that actually has their programs mapped to it. Each of these circles is an individual program or service, and the size of the circle is proportionate to how big the program is in terms of its expenses. We've labeled a handful of them that we might talk about today, but behind each of these is a program. And you can see again the 2 axes. On the horizontal, there was a set of criteria to rate each of these programs in terms of alignment with goals for impact. What were the outcomes? Who was the program serving? How effectively? And on the financial dimension, right? Was this program requiring a net subsidy, or was it generating actually some net positive revenue that could be reinvested elsewhere? I've one that was so intriguing when you did this work, Ian, is the nursing assistant training program. Like we talked about, it's rare to have something that's actually above the line, and you all did. So what did this prompt for you as you sort of did this analysis and thought about the future of that program?
Great point. And yeah, you can see the the program up there in that upper right quadrant. And it was interesting because no matter how we thought about alignment with the mission or for financial sustainability, whether we're talking about grants or, whatever it is, that program was, the definition of a clear winner. And that was one of those, I think, aha moments where it's like, hey, we're going to have to dump some more resources into this program because we want it to be the model. We want it to continue to grow. We want it, participants to be there. We like having a waiting list to get into the program, and we wanted to make sure that continued. So anytime you get programs that end up in that upper right, I think that it's worth considering whether you want to continue to add to the program or you're comfortable with where it is. We decided we wanted to add to the program. Now, COVID had other ideas in terms of how fast we could grow it, but we're really proud to have that program and really proud for all of the participants and all the funding that we're able to generate out of that program.
The after school program, which I know is where then you faced a hard choice, something on this bottom left. Can you tell us about sort of what the analysis told you about that program and where you went?
Yeah, that's a tough one because there were, we had students in the program. We had a lot of, alum who were very proud of the program. We had a dynamic leader in that space, but you can see it. It's down in the lower left. We were having trouble with funding. We were having some trouble with enrollment. And the really big turning point, though, was getting all the leaders in the room and talking about how the program aligned with these goals that we had for impact. And, the initial thought was that this would be a program that would support students coming long-term into some of our other programming, our high schools and our workforce programs. But after talking and looking through some of the data, we found that the students actually weren't enrolling in our high schools. Their parents were not participants in our career programs. And, from that standpoint, it became apparent that, this is not aligning very well with our goals, and it's not doing well financially. And we decided to make a change. Having said that, this was not a on-off type of switch where we flipped it off and everybody, whatever, you're on your own. We worked really hard to work with other organizations that we have, ongoing partnerships with to make sure that each student was placed in another program, and that the folks, the staff, ended up going into other programs as well. Other than the actual program leader, he ended up taking another position and leaving the organization altogether. Anytime that you work in the nonprofit space, you care a lot about your participants and the staff. And we wanted to make sure that each student was placed somewhere else. So even when we're talking about a program that ultimately is not with our organization anymore, it's a process to make sure that you look out for all the participants, and they ended up being placed at other places.
What's your advice to folks thinking about diving into a process like this?
I know that for us, we were extremely busy. We had a new leadership team, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. It's a huge investment of time that you must prioritize, because in the end, it will reap significant rewards of clarity, alignment, and to be frank, team building within the folks that go through the process. It arms you with an arsenal of tools to be better able to respond to some of the requests you'll normally get from the board, but quite frankly, to get ahead of the questions that the board will have, because you're guiding that conversation. And the data will never be perfect. You'll never have exactly what you need to be able to feel 1,000% confident, but we felt very darn good confident, and it was extremely helpful in clarifying what our direction will be.